Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will be demonstrating the proper setup to what many believe to be the ultimate test of human strength and performance. And of course that is called the deadlift. Now some of you may not know what a deadlift is. That's perfectly okay because I can assume that most of us have heard the saying, lift with your legs, not your back. Lift with your legs, not your back. When people say this, they're typically saying to hinge at your hips, use your torso from above your waist to act as a sturdy lever, and then use the musculature in your glutes, your quads, and your hamstrings to lift a load up, be it furniture, just something heavy. Regardless of what you're actually lifting, you're hinging at your hips to lift something more efficiently and more powerfully. Now, as I just said, this is a hip hinge, which is exactly what a deadlift is. So we've all been performing deadlifts at least once at one point in our lives. And despite it being such a natural and optimal movement, football coaches typically don't have their athletes performing a deadlift. Many exercise specialists mark the deadlift as something for beginners to avoid because it has such a high rate of injury. And I believe that to be simply because people don't set up to the deadlift correctly. And so today I'll be demonstrating for you the process of which to set up for a deadlift optimally and safely so that you can pull maximal loads. Now, the three-step process that I'm about to show you is going to be the foot placement / your stance width, then performing your Valsalva and bracing properly, and finally pulling the slack out of the bar and your body. Like any sturdy house, we're going to start at the foundation, which is going to be your stance width and your position, the foundation of your deadlift. My first source, according to Dr. Stephanie Cohen, the ideal shin angle is going to be one that is perpendicular to the ground. The stance width / hip height will be whatever is comfortable and will be personal to every single person. But as long as it is comfortable and you are able to sit into it with whatever mobility you have, that is the one that you should assume. From then, your toe angle, this will markedly be whatever tracks over your knee, but also a good rule of thumb is that it should be 45 degrees from, pointed at 45 degrees to the innermost plate that you've loaded onto your deadlift. So you approach the bar and make sure that you are centered on the bar. Make sure that you're in a comfortable stance width and that your knees are outside of where you wish to grip the bar. And then make sure that you have that 45-degree toe angle with the innermost plates of the bar. And once we have gone through this entire process, we will move on to performing our Valsalva and bracing our core for the movement. You may be asking yourself, what is a Valsalva? It is a technique used to add strength and rigidity to our core, below the rib cage, which makes you a more sturdy lever for your deadlift. According to my second source, Armistead Leg, this technique traps air in your lungs, which creates intra-abdominal pressure. It stabilizes your torso and adds rigidity. It's a very simple process. To perform a Valsalva, we simply take the breath into our gut and then force the air out without letting any actually leak out through our mouth or through our nose. This creates that intra-abdominal pressure, which will make us a more sturdy lever for that deadlift. Now, once we know how to perform this Valsalva, we will want to perform this in tandem with our next step, which will be pulling slack out of the bar and our bodies. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking, pulling slack out of a bar that can hold up to 800 pounds? How am I supposed to do that? Isn't a solid steel bar supposed to be rigid? Well, according to my third source, J.F. Cauchy, there will be give in the bar under heavy enough loads. And there's also space between the sleeves and the plates and the sleeves and the bushings and the bearings. And by pulling this out, we're adding stability and repeatability to the lift, which will again reduce the risk of injury. And to do this, you're going to reach down after you've assumed your stance width, your toe angle, and you've started to perform your Valsalva. You will go forward, you will reach down and grab the bar at shoulder width. Once you've done that, you will pull up and increasingly add tension without making the plates break the floor. By doing this, you're necessarily activating the necessary musculature for the lift, as well as pulling the slack out of the deadlift. So once again, we assume our comfortable stance width, make sure our toe angle is at 45 degrees, start performing our Valsalva by breathing into our gut and creating that intra-abdominal pressure, and then pulling up and pulling the slack out of the bar without the plates breaking the ground. Now, this is often written off as a dangerous movement. because people don't follow this easy 3-step process that will reduce almost all risk. Of course, that being, assuming that comfortable stance width, starting to perform out Valsalva, and then pulling the slack out of the bar. So next time someone asks you to move something for them, or perform any hip hinge out in public, just very quickly tell them that you've got this. You can do a deadlift and just start to perform your Valsalva. And of course, I have never received any injury while performing this setup because I make sure that I'm safe and I make sure that there is little to no risk when performing the setup that I've demonstrated for you here today. Now, if you ever need to deadlift for somebody, perform a hip hinge or lift with your legs, be it 60 kilograms or 500 kilograms, I promise that if you use this setup, you will receive no injury and you will be at no risk of injury. But I can't necessarily promise that you'll move the weight. Thank you.
Just write down